I once thought my marriage was perfect. I loved my husband, and he provided me with a stable life. Yet I betrayed him. But when I woke up on Christmas Day to find him exacting his cruel revenge, I realized I had destroyed everything. My phone vibrated on the conference table during the middle of the project meeting. Its buzzing, barely audible over the voices discussing flood management. Logistics. Still, it was enough to draw my attention. I glanced down and my stomach clenched as Tom's name lit up the screen. He rarely texted during work hours, especially not something cryptic. Call me. ASAP. It's about Laura. I stared at the message for a moment, the words swimming on the screen. Enthusiasm, scenarios flashed through my mind, each more troubling than the last. I couldn't afford to ignore this. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said, standing up. My colleagues glanced up briefly, but I waved them off. Urgent family matter. He'll be back shortly. No one argued. I had a reputation for keeping my work and personal life separate, for being composed and professional. But in that moment, as I walked briskly out of the room, my mind was anything but calm. The fluorescent lights in the hallway felt glaring and unnatural. I stepped into a quiet corner, pressed Tom's name on my phone, held it to my ear. He picked up almost immediately. What's going on? My voice low, but firm. There was a pause on the other end, as if he was searching for the right words. Then, Daniel, I saw Laura. What do you mean? You saw her in Miami with Michael Smith. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My grip on the phone tightened as my chest constricted. Michael Smith. The name hit like a punch. What exactly did you see? My tone sharp. Now they were together, Tom said, on the beach, holding hands. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. Are you sure? Positive I wouldn't have called. The hallway seemed to tilt, the ground unstable beneath my feet. Laura, my wife, kissing another man, her boss. The weight of it threatened to crush me, but I kept my voice steady. Thanks for telling me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Barely recognizing my own voice. I've got to get back to this meeting, you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Tom asked. I will be. I lied, ending the call for a long moment. I just stood there, the phone still in my hand. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, sharp and throbbing, but I couldn't let myself give in to it. Not here. Not now. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my tie and walked back into the conference room. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. I nodded, when necessary, jotted down notes that made no sense, and fed interest in the discussion. All the while my mind was elsewhere, replaying Tom's words. Like a broken record, that night I arrived home later than usual. Laura was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone as she leaned against the counter. She looked up when I walked in, her smile as polished and practiced as ever. You're home. I was starting to think. You'd moved into the office. Busy day, I replied, keeping my tone light. How was your trip? She launched into a story about the conf panels, networking late nights at the hotel bar. Her lies were effortless, her voice casual. It was a performance, she'd perfected. I nodded along. Betraying. Nothing sounds exhausting. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. When she finally stopped talking, she sighed, dramatically, setting her phone aside. I'm glad to be home. The word felt hollow. I forced a smile. I've got some work to finish up. I'll be in the office. I walked away. I felt her eyes on my back, but I didn't turn around once in my office. I locked the door and sank into the chair. My hands clenched into fists. The rage I'd suppressed all day surged to the surface, threatening to consume me. I wanted to punch something, scream, confront Laura, right then and there. But I didn't. Losing control wouldn't solve anything. If I was going to handle this, I needed to be strategic. I stared at the wall, letting the storm inside me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Laura, though, I didn't know that she could continue her charade without consequence. But she was wrong. I wasn't the kind of man to ignore betrayal. Not when it came to my marriage, my family. By the time I emerged from the office, hours had passed. The house was quiet. Laura, already asleep in our bed. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her. She looked peaceful, her features soft in the dim light. It was a cruel irony, how someone who could wound you so deeply could look so innocent. I turned away, heading to the guest room. The next morning I went through the motions, like nothing had changed. I kissed Laura goodbye, hugged Benjamin, before dropping him off at school and drove to work on the outside. I was the same. Daniel Joyce, dedicated engineer, attentive husband, loving father. But inside something had shifted during my lunch break. I made a call to Robert Bulock, a private investigator, recommended by a colleague. Robert had a reputation for being discreet and thorough. Exactly what I needed, Mr. Joyce. When he picked up, "How can I help you?" "I need information." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Keeping my tone calm about my wife, there was a pause, then a measured response. "Understood. Can you give me specifics?" I told him what I knew, leaving out nothing. He listened without interrupting his questions. Professional, but pointed. By the time I hung up, I felt a grim sense of resolve. This wasn't about revenge. Not entirely. It was about clarity, about knowing the full extent of Laura's betrayal, so I could decide what came next that evening. Laura was unusually cheerful. She chatted about Benjamin's soccer practice, the neighbors, new dog and a promotion. One of her colleagues had received her smile. Never wavered. Her tone never faltered. I responded in kind, nodding and laughing in all the right places. But inside, I felt like I was watching a stranger. The woman sitting across from me was the Laura I knew later as I lay in the guest room again, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Benjamin. He was only 10, old enough to sense the tension in the house, but too young to understand it. The thought of him caught in the crossfire made my chest ache. I had to protect him. Whatever happened between Laura and me, Benjamin deserved stability. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and love. The path ahead was clear, but it wouldn't be easy. There were decisions to make, evidence to gather, and plans to set in motion. As I closed my eyes, I made a silent vow. I would face this storm, head on for Benjamin, for myself, and I would come out the other side, stronger. The days following my call with Robert were some of the hardest of my life. Each morning I woke up in the guest room and went through the motions, dropped Benjamin at school, worked late on the flood control project, and returned home to a house that felt like a minefield. Laura's routine didn't change, which was both a relief and a confirmation. She had no idea. I knew no idea. I was watching. That gave me edge, but it didn't make it easier to be in the same space as her. Every time she smiled at me, every time she laughed at a joke I made, I wanted to scream. The lies came so easily to her, woven seamlessly into her words and actions. It was like living with a stranger I had once loved deeply. Robert, on the other hand, wasted no time. He was efficient, almost surgical in his approach. Within a week, he handed me a report, complete with photos, timestamps, and receipts. The evidence was undeniable. Laura and Michael had been meeting for months. Hotels, dinners, even a weekend getaway. While I was at a work conference, the photos were the hardest to look at there. She was smiling at him, her hand resting on his arm like it belonged there. I flipped through them in my office, my jaw tightening with each one. When I reached the last page, I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Just the betrayal. It was the brazenness of it. The fact that she thought I wouldn't notice, wouldn't care, wouldn't do anything about it. That was what burned the most. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Laura's behavior grew bolder over the next few weeks. She started staying late at the office, more often coming home with excuses that were almost laughable in their transparency. It was just a last-minute meeting. One evening, setting her purse on the counter, Michael needed us to go over the quarterly reports again. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Makes sense. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Inside I felt a fresh wave of anger. She didn't notice the way my eyes hard and or the subtle tension in my jaw. She thought she had me fooled. The only person in the house who seemed to sense something was off was Benjamin, Dad. He asked one night while we were working on his math homework, "Why aren't you sleeping in your room?" I froze for a moment, caught off guard by the question. It's just easier for me to get up early for work if I stay in the guest room. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Finally, that way I don't wake your mum. His brow furrowing. Are you and Mum okay? I forced a smile. We fine, buddy. Just busy. Benjamin didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it hurt to see the worry in his eyes to know that he was already picking up on the cracks in our family. I wanted to tell him the truth to explain everything, but I knew it was the right time. A few days later, I met with David Ross, a divorce attorney who came highly recommended. We met in a small, unassuming coffee shop far from the neighborhood. Gilmore was a sharp newsman who had seen it all. He listened carefully as I laid out the situation, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. You've done well. Finally, most clients come to me in a blind rage, without a shred of evidence. You, on the other hand, have built a solid foundation for your case. I nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His words didn't bring me much comfort. This wasn't about strategy or winning. It was about doing what was right for Benjamin and for myself. Dillo outlined the next steps. Matter of fact, asset protection will be key. We also need to focus on securing primary custody of your son. The evidence you've gathered will be crucial. But need more testimonies, financial records, anything that paints a clear picture of the situation. As he spoke, I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I had someone in my corner who knew what they were doing, and dread at the reality of what lay ahead before we parted. David fixed me with a steady gaze. Some men in your position try to forgive, to sweep it under the rug. Are you sure that's not what you want? There's nothing to forgive, I said quietly. Only actions and consequences. He nodded, satisfied. The next person I turned to was Sarah, my sister. She was a child psychologist, and I trusted her more than anyone when it came to Benjamin's well-being. We met for lunch at a small cafe near her office. As soon as she sat down, she gave me a searching look. What's wrong? She asked. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The words spilled out in a rush. each one heavier than the last. Sarah listened without interrupting her expression, shifting from shock to anger to sorrow. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. So sorry, she said softly. Then her voice hardening, she added, what do you need from me? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said on how to minimize the impact on Benjamin, and I might need your help preparing him for what's coming. Sarah nodded, her professional demeanor taking over. Well, need to be careful. Create a support system for him. Make sure he knows. Achias loved and that none of this is his fault. We spent the next hour discussing strategies and potential pitfalls. By the time we parted, I felt a little more prepared. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. No less burdened, and hugged me tightly before we left Joy doing the right thing. Stay strong back at home. I kept up the facade. I talked to Laura. Over dinner. Attended Benjamin's soccer games. And even sat through a dinner party with Laura's colleagues, including Michael Smith. Watching them interact was like torture. The stolen glances. The private jokes. It was all so obvious. Now every moment I stayed silent felt like a betrayal of my own dignity. But I reminded myself of the bigger picture. After the party, Laura came into the kitchen as I was cleaning up. She was slightly drunk. Her cheeks flushed. You've been so distant lately. Rolling a hand down my arm. Is everything okay? I looked at her, really looked at her for a moment. I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the mother of my child. But that image was quickly overshadowed by the lies and deceit. Just tired. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Finally, big project at work. She pouted, slightly. Cool baby, why don't you come to bed? I can help you relax. For a brief second, I was tempted, not by desire, but by the urge to confront her, to throw her lies in her face. But I knew it was the right time. Thanks. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Forcing a smile, but I've got an early meeting. Ill crash in the guest room. Her expression flickered with something. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Suspicion, but she quickly covered it with a smile. Suit yourself. As I lay in the guest bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I thought about the life I had built and the lies that had unraveled it. There was no going back, no repairing the damage, but there was a way forward, a way to protect myself and Benjamin from the fallout. I just had to be patient. By the time I finalized my next steps, my life had split into two distinct worlds in one. I was the composed and dependable Daniel Joyce, the diligent engineer, the caring father, the seemingly oblivious husband. I was a man betrayed, methodically unraveling the tangled mess Laura had created. The duality was exhausting. Every smile I faked, every polite response I gave, Laura felt like a layer of myself being stripped away. But I couldn't afford to break. Not yet. Robert's reports grew more damning by the day. Time-stamped photos, videos, and financial records painted a picture of a long-standing affair between Laura and Michael Smith. Just personal. It was professional too. Laura had used company funds to finance their escapades. Robert handed me the latest file. One afternoon. This is enough to make any judge look twice. You've got her on infidelity and her boss is implicated in financial misconduct. This could sink them both. I nodded, flipping through the pages without really seeing them. And this stays between us. He gave me a look. You hired me because I'm discreet. Mr. Joyce, you don't need to worry about that. The evidence was solid, but it still churned. My stomach. Each page felt like a knife. Twisting. Deeper. But it was necessary. I couldn't let emotions cloud my judgment. Now, while Robert continued his work, I focused on building a stable future for Benjamin. I reached out to his teachers and coaches, arranging private meetings to explain the situation. Mrs. Thompson, his math teacher, was one of the first we met in her classroom. After hours, the smell of dry erase markers lingering in the air. I wanted to let you know that Laura and I are going through a separation, I said carefully. I'm doing my best to keep things stable for Benjamin, but I thought you should know Mrs. Thompson's expression softened Benjamin's. A great kid. I cheek been quieter lately, but I just thought it was school stress. Is there anything I can do to help? Just keep an eye on him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. If you notice anything unusual, let me know. Kaya smart boy, but this is going to be hard for him. She nodded, her tone gentle, but firm. Don't worry. Well, make sure he has support here. Similar conversations with Benjamin's other teachers and his soccer coach left me feeling more prepared. I couldn't control everything, but at least I could build a network around him. One evening, after Benjamin had gone to bed, I sat in my office with a stack of paperwork. Demo had been clear. I needed to start separating my assets over the next week. I set up new bank accounts in my name, only quietly transferring money and investments that Laura wouldn't notice. I contacted my financial advisor and rented a modest apartment a few blocks away. It was luxurious, but it was clean and comfortable. And most importantly, it would feel like home for Benjamin. I furnished it, slowly paying attention to details that would make it welcoming for him. A comfortable bed, posters of his favorite soccer team, and shelves for his books and games. As I stood in the small living room, one night, looking at the space I had created, I felt a pang of sadness. This was how I'd envisioned life for Benjamin or myself. But it was better than staying in a house built on lies. Laura, oblivious to the changes around her, continued her charade. She still came home late, still scrolled through her phone during dinner, and still wore that practiced smile. Like Benjamin has a G. Came on Saturday. I reminded her one evening. Saturday. Barely looking up. I might have to work. Michael's been pushing us hard this quarter. I bit back a response, my jaw tightening. You should try to make it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Evenly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She replied. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We both knew she wouldn't that Saturday. Benjamin, I went to the game alone. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Scoring 2 goals, but his smile faltered. Every time he glanced at the empty spot where Laura should have been on the drive home, he was quiet. Mom's always busy. His voice small. I hesitated, gripping the steering wheel. She has a lot on her plate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The words felt bitter in my mouth. He didn't respond, but the disappointment in his eyes was clear. The day before my planned work trip, I met Era for coffee. Again, she had been a lifeline throughout this ordeal, offering advice and perspective I couldn't find anywhere else. Are you ready for this? Her tone gentle, but serious, as ready as ill ever be. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I've done everything I can to prepare. Now it's just a matter of timing. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Benjamin's going to be. To my étude extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're doing everything. Right. I nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Her words didn't ease the knot in my chest. I just want him to understand why things have to change. He deserves the truth. Sarah smiled softly. You're a good dad. Daniel, don't forget that. The next morning I left the house before dawn, suitcase in hand. I drove to the new apartment, closing the door behind me with a mix of relief and apprehension. The first thing I did was set up my laptop, connecting it to the feed from the hidden cameras. It installed in the house. It was a step I took lightly, but I needed. Irrefutable. Proof of Laura's betrayal. Proof I could take to court if necessary. That evening, Michael's car pulled into the driveway. I watched as Laura greeted him at the door, calling him into a kiss. That left no room for doubt. My stomach churned. I forced myself to keep watching over the next few days. They grew bolder, lounging by the pool, drinking from the expensive whiskey I'd bought, and even using the master bedroom. It was almost surreal, watching my wife and her lover flaunt their betrayal so openly. Each moment added another layer to my resolve. The day of the confrontation was fast approaching. I met David to finalize the paperwork and rehearsed what I would say to Benjamin with Sarah. Every detail had to be perfect that evening. As I sat in the quiet of the apartment, I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me. The life I had built was crumbling, but I knew it was for the best. Laura had made her choices. Now it was time for her to face the consequences. The day of reckoning arrived with the kind of quiet inevitability that had come to define this entire ordeal. I felt oddly calm as I drove to pick up Benjamin from school. The legal documents, tucked safely in a folder, on the passenger seat. Everything was in place as Benjamin climbed into the car. His face lit up when he saw me, Dad. You're back early. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The weight in my chest made it feel hollow. I am. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But we need to talk, buddy. It's important. His smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. He was too perceptive for his age, a trait that had always made me proud, and in moments like this made things harder. Is it about Mom? He asked hesitantly. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. We'll talk when we get to the park. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He nodded, his brow furrowed. We found a quiet spot away from the playground, and I knelt in front of him, taking a deep breath. Benjamin, you've probably noticed that things have been tense at home lately. I began. He nodded, wide and serious. You and Mom, you don't talk much anymore. You're mad, but trying not to show it. His words hit me harder than I expected, but I pressed on Yuri. Right. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gently, and I owe you an explanation. Your mom, she's been spending time with someone else. Someone who isn't part of our family. Benjamin's brow furrowed further, like a friend. I shook my head. More than a friend. She's been romantic with this person. Do you understand what that means? His eyes wide, and he looked away, his small hands clenching into fists. She has a boyfriend. Yes, I said softly, but that's not. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Not when we're married. What she's doing is called cheating, and it's wrong. It's hurtful to our family. Tears welled up in his eyes. And before I could say more, he threw himself into my arms. Sobbing, I held him tightly, whispering reassurances as my own emotions threatened to overwhelm me over his shoulder. I saw Sarah, watching from a distance, her expression both supportive and pained when his sobs finally subsided. I pulled back, slightly, making his tears streak. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Benjamin, I need to show you something. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It might be hard to see, but it's important that you understand what's happening. His voicemail. Okay. I pulled out my phone, showed him a carefully edited video clips of Laura and Michael that were clear enough to convey the truth, but chosen carefully to spare him the worst. Benjamin watched in silence. A mix of confusion, hurt and anger. That's Mr. Smith. His voice trembling from Mom's work. Yes, I said. They've been spending a lot of time together. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the phone as if trying to process what he had just seen, then in a small voice. What's going to happen now? I took a deep breath. Things are going to change. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gently, your mom and I, we can't be married anymore. Not after this. I'm going to move out and you'll spend time with both of us. But for now, you'll stay with me. To my surprise, Benjamin didn't cry again. He looked at me with a kind of determination that made my heart ache. Can I come with you? I don't want to stay with Mom. Right now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You can. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice thick with emotion. That's the plan. When we got home, Benjamin went straight to his room to pack, just as we'd discussed. Meanwhile, I prepared myself for the confrontation with Laura and Michael. As I walked into the backyard, I found them lounging by the pool, drinks in hand. For a moment, I just stood there, watching them. They looked so relaxed, so self-assured. When Laura noticed me, she froze her drink, halfway to her lips. Daniel. Her voice strained. You're home early. I smiled coldly. Evidently, Michael stood trying to project confidence. Now, Daniel, this isn't what it looks like. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I cut him off, my voice sharp because it looks like my wife is having an affair with her boss in my home. Please enlighten me as to what it actually is. Laura is shocked and to anger. How dare you spy on me? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. This is an invasion of privacy. I left. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Humorless sound. Privacy in my house paid for with my money. That's rich. Laura, almost as rich as the evidence I've collected over the past few weeks. I pulled out my phone and played a short compilation of their moments together. Their voices, their actions, their betrayal, laid bare. Michael paled, his confidence crumbling. I think I should go. Edging toward the gate. Oh no. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice dangerously calm. You're going to want to stick around for this next part. I tossed a thick envelope onto the table. Divorce papers. Laura, I'm sure you'll find the terms illuminating. Her hand shook as she picked up the envelope, her face growing paler with each page. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You can't possibly think a judge would agree to this. Oh, I think they will. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My tone icy, especially when they see the evidence of how you've been misusing company funds to finance your little tryst. Michael's head snapped up what he demanded. Turning to Laura, you said those charges were approved. Do you have any idea what this could do to my career? Laura sputtered, but I didn't give her a chance to respond. You didn't think about anything, did you? Not about me. Not about Benjamin. Not about your jobs. Or your reputations as if on cue. Benjamin appeared in the doorway, his packed bag in hand. He looked at Laura, his young face, a mask of disappointment and hurt. Benjamin, she began, her voice trembling. Baby, I can explain. Don't bother. His voice small, but firm. I don't want to hear it. He walked over to me, slipping his hand into mine. I gave it a reassuring squeeze. We're leaving now, I said, my voice steady. Benjamin will be staying with me for the foreseeable future. Your lawyer can contact mine about visitation. Laura's voice broke as she called after us. Daniel, please. We can talk about this. We can work it out. I turned back, meeting her gaze. The woman I had once loved was now a stranger to me. There's nothing to work out. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Coldly, you made your choice. Now we get to live with it as Benjamin. And I drove away. He reached over and squeezed my hand. It was a small gesture, but its poke. Volumes were going to be. Okay, buddy. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice firm. We've got each other. And that's what matters. For the first time in weeks I felt a sense of peace. The storm was far from over, but the worst of it was behind us. Now it was time to focus on rebuilding our lives together. The drive to the apartment was quiet, but not tense. Benjamin sat in the back seat, staring out the window, his small suitcase at his feet. Every so often, he would glance at me in the rearview mirror, as if searching for reassurance. When we pulled into the parking lot, he finally spoke. Is this where we're staying now? I nodded, cutting the engine for now. Yes, it's not big, but I think you'll like it. Benjamin got out of the car and followed me inside. His expression shifted from apprehension to curiosity as we stepped into the apartment. I had done my best to make it feel like home. A soft couch, a small dining table at a bedroom filled with familiar things from his room at the house. Benjamin rocked his bag on the bed, head and ran his hand over the quilt he'd brought from the old house. You even brought my books. A small smile, breaking through the tension on his face. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Leaning against the doorframe. This is your home too. He nodded, sitting on the bed and flipping through one of his favorite novels. For the first time in weeks, he seemed at ease. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. David filed the divorce papers and I started notifying the necessary parties about the separation. My boss was surprisingly understanding when I explained the situation. You've been through the ringer, haven't you? Clapping me on the shoulder. Take the time. You need joy. You've earned it. I threw myself into the flood control project with renewed focus. It became a refuge, a place where my skills and efforts were measurable, the results tangible. The chaos in my personal life felt more manageable when I had something concrete to anchor myself to. Meanwhile, the fallout for Laura and Michael began to spread like wildfire. GMO had warned me that divorces could get messy, especially when lawyers like Laura's attorney, Bridget Hawthorne, were involved. Shaq tried to paint you as controlling, he said during one of our strategy meetings. Cold, emotionally unavailable. They'll want to shift the blame onto you, let them. To my agent extraordinaire, Webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Calmly, we have the truth on our side. Gil Ero, smacked that we do. True to form, Laura Scamp launched a media blitz, portraying me as the villain in the story. Gossip columns speculated about the workaholic husband who neglected his wife, driving her into the arms of another man. But I refused to engage publicly. Go handled the press while I focused on Benjamin. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Benjamin hesitated before speaking. Dad, I saw something about you on TV. Carefully slicing a cucumber for the salad. What did you see? Keeping my tone calm. The reason Mom cheated that you didn't care about her. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. That's not true. Right. I sat down the spatula and knelt to his level. It's not true. Buddy, people say all sorts of things during divorces. What matters that? You know, the truth. I do. Firmly. Mom's lying again. His certainty. Both broke my heart and filled me with pride. I pulled him into a hug, marveling at his resilience. Thank you for trusting me, Benjamin. That means everything to me. The legal battle reached its climax during a tense court session. Laura and B. Ridge tried to frame me as a neglectful husband. The GUO systematically dismantled their argument. First came the testimonies from Benjamin's teachers and coaches who spoke to my involvement in his life. Mrs. Thompson was particularly effective. Mr. Joyce is one of the most involved parents I've ever met. He attends every parent-teacher conference, volunteers for events, and always makes time for his son. Gilmore nodded. And what about Mrs. Joyce? Has she participated in any school activities? Mrs. Thompson hesitated. I've never met her. Laura squirmed in her seat as GUO presented the financial evidence. Next to it held bills. Plain. To my agent extraordinaire, Webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and gifts, all charged to the company account. Michael managed, Your Honor. Go said, his voice ringing with righteous indignation. This isn't just a case of infidelity. To my agent extraordinaire, Webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The judge's expression grew colder with each piece of evidence. By the time Gilmore rested his case, the outcome was clear. In light of the evidence presented, the judge said, I am granting Mr. Joy's petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Furthermore, I am awarding him primary custody of the minor child. Benjamin Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, will have supervised visitation pending a full evaluation. Laura's muffled sobs filled the courtroom as B. Ridge tried to consult her. I felt no satisfaction, only relief. It was over. The fallout extended beyond the courtroom. Michael's company launched an internal investigation. Horrified by the finance revealed during the trial, he was terminated within days, escorted out of the building in disgrace. Laura fared no better. Her reputation was in tatters, and job offers dried up as word of her actions spread. She reached out to me several times, begging for another chance, but I ignored her messages. Benjamin, too, began distancing himself from her after one particularly strained visitation. He climbed into my car. His expression troubled. Mom says, you turned everyone against her. He said quietly, that it's your fault. She lost her job and can't see me more. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, keeping my voice steady. What do you think about that? He was quiet for a long moment before answering. I think she's still lying. She made her choices. You just told the truth. Pride swelled in my chest. That's exactly right, Benjamin. The truth isn't always easy, but it's always better than a lie. He nodded, and I felt a sense of peace settle over us. In the months that followed, our new life took shape. Therapy sessions with Sarah helped Benjamin process his feelings, and he began to thrive in school. Again, Carla, a colleague from work, became a quiet but steady presence in our lives. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We bonded over shared projects, but as time passed, our conversations deepened. She never pushed respecting the space I needed to rebuild. One evening after dinner, she confessed that she had been offered a job on the West Coast. It's a great opportunity. Her voice, hesitant, but I'm not sure. I want to leave. What would make you stay? Softly, she smiled. Her eyes, warm you and Benjamin for the first time in a long while. I felt a flicker of hope. Wed, like that. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. As autumn turned to winter, I stood in our new home's backyard, watching Benjamin and Carla laugh as they built a snowman. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of contentment. The betrayal that had once consumed me was now just a memory in its place. I had built a life filled with love, trust and resilience. The storm had passed, and in its wake, we had found something beautiful. 5 years later, the echoes of the storm that had once engulfed my life had faded into the background. Betrayal, heartbreak and loss had shaped the man I had become, but they no longer defined me standing in the backyard of our new home. I watched Benjamin as he helped. Carla set up the grill for a barbecue. His laughter rang out, clear and bright as Carla teased him about his clumsy attempts to light the coals. You've got to turn the dial the other way. Grinning, Benjamin shook his head, a playful scowl on his face. I know I'm just testing you. Their banter brought a smile to my face. They had built a bond over the years, one rooted in mutual respect and care. Carla had never tried to replace Laura in Benjamin's life, and Benjamin had grown to appreciate her warmth and steady presence. Laura, on the other hand, was a distant figure in our lives. After the divorce, she had struggled to rebuild herself. Her career was in ruins, her reputation irreparably tarnished. Job offers dried up, and she eventually moved 3 states away, working as a cashier at a discount store. She called Benjamin monthly. Their conversation, brief and stilted, he tolerated her efforts, but kept her at arm's length. The boy who once clung to her every word now spoke to her with the detached politeness of a stranger. Her attempts to regain custody or increase visitation failed at every turn. Judges saw through her manipulations, and Benjamin made it clear where he wanted to be. Mom made her choices, he told me, his voice steady. Now, she has to live with them. Those words spoken with such maturity made me ache for the innocence he had lost. But I was also proud. He had emerged from the chaos. More resilient and wiser than most his age, Michael Smith fared no better. His termination had sent ripples through the corporate world, marking him as unreliable and unethical. He ended up selling used cars in a small town. His once polished demeanor, now a hollow shell of its former self. Occasionally, I heard whispers of Laura and Michael reconnecting online, exchanging bitter messages about the unfairness of their situation. It was hard to pity them. When they had sown the seeds of their own downfall, my own life had taken a different trajectory. The flood control project that had been my refuge during those dark days became the cornerstone of my professional success. Its innovative design garnered awards and recognition, cementing my reputation as a leader in urban water management. At the awards ceremony for the project, I stood on stage, gazing out at the audience. In the front row sat Benjamin, now 15, his face glowing with pride. Beside him was Carla, her encouraging smile, a constant source of strength. And in the back of the room, almost hidden in the shadows, was Laura. She looked worn, her once pristine appearance replaced by the signs of a hard life. For a brief moment, our eyes met. I saw regret and bitterness there, but no acknowledgement of the choices that had brought her to this point. I turned back to the podium, focusing on the future. This project, Ty began, was born of a desire to protect communities from disasters along the way. I learned that the most important foundation we can build is one of integrity and resilience in our cities and in our lives. The applause that followed was loud and genuine, but it was Benjamin's beaming smile that filled me with the deepest sense of accomplishment. In the years since the divorce, my relationship with Carla had grown into something I hadn't thought possible. We married in a small intimate ceremony, with Benjamin proudly standing as my best man. Carla brought a warmth and stability to our lives that had been missing for so long. She understood the scars I carried and never tried to diminish them. She helped me find strength in them, teaching me that love could be both patient and healing. Benjamin, now in high school, had developed a passion for environmental science, a field that brought us even closer. We spent weekends discussing conservation efforts and dreaming about the future. Sarah remained a vital part of our lives, her insights and unwavering support, helping Benjamin navigate the complexities of adolescence. Sunday, dinners at her house became a cherished tradition, filled with laughter and the comfort of family. Even Tom, the friend whose warning had started this journey, stayed a steadfast presence. He had been my best man at the wedding and was now Benjamin's godfather, a role he took seriously. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Not without his trademark humor. As the barbecue wound down that spring evening, I found myself standing on the back porch, a drink in hand, watching the sunset. Benjamin and Carla were inside laughing as they cleaned up, their voices blending into the soft hum of CICs. Sarah and Tom joined me on the porch, each carrying a glass. "You've come a long way," Sarah said, leaning against the railing. I nodded, taking in the scene before me. "We all have." Tom raised his glass to new beginnings, and knowing when to walk away, we clinked our glasses, the sound light and celebratory. The storm that had once threatened to destroy me had become a distant memory, replaced by a life built on love, trust and resilience. The choices I had made, difficult as they were, had led me to this moment, surrounded by the people who mattered most. As twilight deepened, I turned to join my family and friends, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been painful, but it had brought me here to this home, to this life, to this peace. Here's the next story. We went Christmas shopping and stumbled across an old fling who came to say hello. My spouse took vengeance. What's worse than having your life shattered on Christmas Day? Not sure, but I've never had a worse day than that. Let me introduce myself, and then I'll proceed with this story. My name is Sarah, and I am 30 years old. I was married to James, the love of my life. At least I thought so. We were pleased, and I believed we had a strong marriage to me. It felt like we complemented each other. James was reliable. He was such a confident person. He also provided economic security for our family. Before we married James, and I dated for 2 years. Oh yes, we met at a holiday party held by a shared friend. Since that day, we haven't separated. I saw something in him that I couldn't find in my prior relationship. James was a boy. He was a man, and I knew I could count on him whenever I needed to. He was a smart, intelligent man. James had always been a strategic planner, and he valued structure and commitment. Loyalty was the most vital aspect of every connection to him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What drew me to James in the beginning was his dependability. He was the polar antithesis of every previous relationship I had. He may also bring steadiness in all senses. Economic stability, a lovely home with a future. I could count on it. Do not misunderstand me. I didn't go with James because of what he could offer. I adored him, but the flame faded with time. As I already stated, we were buddies before the meeting, and when we chose to marry and James proposed, I felt extremely fortunate. Since I was married, my closest friend, I could chat to him about anything. I ran to him for whatever I needed. Every time something occurred to me, good or bad, I'd inform him. James was an entrepreneur who had a consulting firm and was highly successful. Meanwhile, I was working as a project manager for a medium-sized company. My husband got me this job because, as a successful businessman, he knew a lot of people and utilized his connections to obtain me the position. So James improved all aspects of my existence. So we married, and our relationship continued to improve. We were also contemplating about having children, because we both like them so much. James was the type of person who would hold the door open for me. He paid attention, while others spoke, so he understood how to listen. He carried himself with quiet authority. Where I met him, I had recently finished an nasty relationship with William. I met him while we were both in college. I believed it was the end of the world, because I deeply loved him. And when we split up, I had no idea what to do or how to move on. William had infused my life with immense passion. We were both young and passionate. We would spend every night together, and not have enough. I love William, but we would have a lot of fights. His lack of dedication and ambition was our downfall. I realized that I desired more from life than simply living like that with someone like William, and I terminated. It wasn't easy. In reality, it was quite difficult, since William knew how to get under my skin, like no one else. So that was my little history of how I met William. Let's get back to our true marriage. As I already stated, we were quite passionate, and the spark between us was always present. Perhaps we kept it alive, because we both gave so much to each other. We both attempted to keep things interesting, because we knew that if we started living and settled into a routine, our love would die. But it did not last long. We've been going on dates since we got married, and I've always surprised him with unusual and attractive lingerie. Could you imagine, we sometimes played roles in sexual relationships. Our partnership was never boring until we let each other down. James would occasionally call me into his office, only to have sex with me. Spontaneous sex at his desk. It increased our adrenaline levels and made us feel great about each other times. I would tease him with steamy text messages or images taken in my office's bathroom, and he would surprise me by coming to visit. Yes, that was fantastic. What else was great? We go on road excursions and enjoy each other's company, while laughing and singing along the way. I can't believe I lost John and our wonderful life. How could I possibly be so stupid? You may be wondering why I'm calling myself stupid. I'll tell you right immediately. However, please refrain from passing judgment on me. Please be gentle with me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I cheated on my husband, and not only did I lose him, but he also took everything I had, and completely destroyed my life. The worst part was that I deserved it. I'm not trying to find excuses here, but, to be honest, our lives had become normal, the thing we never desired. I knew from the start that the routine would extinguish our spark, and connection, being successful does not come without cost. James was always too busy. He was constantly working and had no time for me or us. That's when things got tougher. I started to feel restless and unappreciated. He wasn't paying me any more attention. We stopped going on dates and spent less time together. We lost our best communication skills every time to talk to Jan. He attacked me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Of being selfish and not appreciating all he was doing for us and our family. Next, we lost our passion. Sex was uninteresting, so we stopped doing it as much as we used to. James knew. I'd dislike the routine. It bored me. It drove me inane. I craved excitement and wanted to do anything that would break the monotony that was stealing my joy. But the thrill was going to kill and ruin my marriage. I couldn't stop thinking about how we were the ideal pair for everyone. Yet, They had no idea what we were going through. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What I was going through was telling James that everything was fine. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Christmas was approaching, and that time of year has always been our favorite. It reminded us to be grateful for what we had, and above all for one another. We used to go shopping together every Christmas, and I hope this year will be no exception. So I asked my husband to do our Christmas shopping, and he agreed. We strolled the bustling mall together, watching and buying gifts for our family. We would cheerfully shop together and chose everything together. And as I was admiring a dress for myself, a familiar voice emerged from the back. It was William. "Hey, Sarah." My heart began to beat quicker, just like the first time I saw him. Why did I feel so anxious? He was the first love of my life, which I assumed was typical to feel this way. No matter what, I spent a significant portion of my life with him, and we went through a lot together. He had not changed much. He was the same attractive youngster with black hair and black eyes, always on the move, and filled with joy as ever, aired by the bright glitter in his eyes. Looking at that reminded me of so many memories. Can you imagine that he would climb through the window and into my room? Like if in a movie we had sex here. For the first time, all of these memories flashed before my eyes, and I couldn't help but smile. John turned to see this attractive tall man approaching us, and he may have noticed that I was smiling, which I hadn't done in years. "Oh, William, it's you." My voice came out strangely. It demonstrated that I was startled and happy. What occurred next would sow the seeds of doubt in my husband's heart. And thinking, I was unaware of this at the time. I assumed everything would be all right. William approached me and held me in a very familiar way, as if he had known me forever, and we were simply continuing where we had left off. While he hugged me, my heart was still thumping too quickly, and I couldn't stop it. But I was also gazing at James, concerned about what he might think. While William completely ignored him and proceeded to hug me, I could see him eyeing me, and William hugging me. I was terrified. He would understand. So indeed, this is what happened. We went Christmas shopping and ran into an old flame who stopped to say hello. My spouse took vengeance. But let's be clear, he wanted retribution. Not because William was so lovely to me and neglected him, but because I cheated on him. And Johan was foolish. He could detect if I was lying or being disloyal. Do you recall when I told you that loyalty was the most into him in a relationship? I agree. I never imagined I could do that to someone. Not just anyone, but the love of my life. I never imagined I'd be able to cheat on him. My parents taught and educated me on some key virtues, one of which was loyalty. By cheating on my husband, I disappointed everyone. I apologize if I get lost in the story, but I have to. So yes, William left and we went our separate ways. James immediately inquired who he was, and not sure why, but I lied to him, telling him he was an old acquaintance. I did not tell him William was my ex-boyfriend. Fortunately, it never showed him any images of himself. This is just a tale, because William had played a significant role in my life. James looked at me curiously. I knew how intelligent and acute he was, which is why I was frightened. He would have understood something, but he showed no signals of suspicion. We finished our shopping and returned home right away. He got on his laptop and informed me he needed to work a little. He was really polite, apologizing for not paying me enough attention, and I was pleased. He didn't suspect anything. While he was in working, I was gazing at my phone, hoping for William to text me. I knew he would, because I knew him so well. He would text me after so long. I had not seen him since our breakup. He had previously relocated abroad, but it appeared that he had returned. Perhaps he was only in town for Christmas. Why was I thinking about him so much? I was married, and I adored my husband. But here, I was thinking about William. I suddenly found myself scrolling through his social pages. As I previously stated, he had a knack of getting under my skin. Nobody else had. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I convinced myself that this was harmless. Staring at his social media would do me no damage while I was considering a text message received from a number that was not in my contact. Yes, it was William. I was unconsciously smiling as I read it, and I caught my spouse looking at me suspiciously. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. William had written that. You were as gorgeous as ever at coffee tomorrow. And of course, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Yes, I was hoping for something exciting to break up. The routine. I was trapped in monotony, and the routine was suffocating me. William was saving me. At least that was my thought at the time. However, it was the complete opposite. William would literally drown me in life. I had forgotten how intelligent John was and how quickly he learned things he actually did. So one message after another, followed by cough. Next comes sex. I thought I deserved a small respite. This was how I coped with my guilt. The next day I had coffee with William. We went to a cafe we used to frequent when we were together. He picked on a location, and I agreed. When we met, we felt like we were back in time. He still made my heart race. Yet he was the same nasty individual. So we spoke a lot about life in general, and ended up having sex in his place, which made me late for work. To be honest, I did not want to go, but I had to. Not only did I have work to do, but the employer was a friend of my husband's, and he was going to tell him. Well, I'm not sure about that, but nonetheless, I arrived to work late. Sex with William remained the same. Incredible. I couldn't, and didn't want to stop, but I knew I had to. It was as if it restored color to my life, which had become black and white due to regularity and boredom. Monotony saddened me, and now I was happy. William seemed pleased as well. So I went back to work and then home. Since then, I've had numerous girls. Evenings, and they've all been at William's apartment. JN believed me on everything. He was fine with my going out so much, but he was investigating me. And William seemed to know from the start that something was amiss between us. He just didn't want me to comprehend. He wanted to be sure. Then, he wanted to plot his cool and calculated revenge. I knew my husband and should have understood. But I got caught up in the romance and passion with William was not a romantic yet. With his simple words, he made me his girl once more. I could not say no to him. We had our affair for several months. We typically met at his apartment, but I would occasionally invite him over. I did it while my husband was on a business trip. Or when I knew he would be late to work. I took a huge risk by doing it. But I did it. And am not proud of what I did throughout this period. I believed I was being cautious enough. But how could I was telling my husband that I needed some time alone, even though I was traveling with William and enjoying his company? The truth is that James knew everything from the time I saw William, but he knew better than to approach me immediately. He knew that confronting me would not cause me any significant harm. He was gathering evidence of my betrayal, so he could seize everything from me. I'd figure everything out afterward. I was too preoccupied with my affair with William and nostalgically, recalling the good old days. Christmas Eve would unveil his gift for me, and God knows how shocked it'd be. I wasn't sure where my life was going. I adored James, and everything he gave for me. But I also felt a connection with William had always been a part of my life. And when he returned, I felt as if I'd been missing him forever. The flame had returned, but this time with William. The indicators that James recognized were obvious, but I was blind. Now I can see clearly. I remember one day coming out of the shower and finding him, holding my phone. When I questioned him, what he was doing with my phone, He was phoning his own number, because he couldn't find his phone, which I believed I was afraid, because I forgot. It never erased any texts with William. There were numerous private texts and photos. Photos of the two of us in bed. James returned my phone, and I noticed William had just sent me a message, saying last night was amazing. I can't wait to spend another full night with you. I was quite afraid at the time. What happens if James reads the message? I prayed he hadn't. He actually did. But he showed no indications or anything. He read through everything, and took screenshots of it. The next thing he did was install cameras in our bedroom and kitchen. I never knew these cameras existed. Furthermore, as I previously stated, he'd been inviting William around several times. We had intercourse on our bed. I am not proud of it, and I regret it deeply. But now it is too late. At the very least, I need to be honest with you, even if I know you'll judge me ill. But I'm already going through too much. So, my husband was gathering evidence that I was cheating on him, and filing divorce papers with a divorce lawyer. He was about to leave me with nothing. He was going to block all of my credit cards and embarrass me. He was intelligent. He made sure I didn't suspect anything while he plotted his cold revenge. And he planned to exact revenge on me on Christmas morning. While Christmas was approaching, I was enjoying every moment of my time with William. I spent more time with him, and every time I became more negligent, leaving clues of my infidelity and taking William home more frequently. I completely forgot how intelligent my husband was. Also, when William came to work, I never asked him not to come. I failed to inform him how I got that position, and that he shouldn't come see me there. So he did, and I was there lying to everyone that he was my cousin. I had gotten myself into a situation from which I had no way out. I was sure if I wanted to get out, I did not want to give up on William. It seemed as if he was making me feel alive again, and I did not want to give it up. While I was with him, I forgot about my marriage. I forgot about James. Our relationship was really strong, full of emotions and passion. It felt like I was living in a fairy tale. Despite the fact that I had a real life and was married, I had a responsibility to be faithful to someone, and I was failing by cheating on him. I was stabbing him in the back, and I was disappointing myself, and my entire family. My husband knew that my family would never forgive me if they found out I had cheated on him, so he made certain that they were aware of that. His plan was his own, so let me clarify immediately. His cold revenge on Christ. Christmas morning, his revenge bomb burst, or more specifically, he caused it to explode. When I woke up, he was by my side. I went downstairs and noticed that the gifts were no longer there. The tree was demolished, like a broken promise, and there were ornaments everywhere. He created this entire scene on purpose, and I was very terrified. So terrified of what was going on. He shouted my name from the kitchen and requested me to come there. Chidi placed the box on the table and requested me to open it. He requested me to open the package, because it was his Christmas gift. I tried to ask him what was going on, but he said that day he would be the one asking questions. I didn't get to ask any other questions. I took the box and opened it. Guess what was inside it? There were numerous printed screenshots of my chat with William, as well as images of us taken from the camera while we were doing it on the couch. It never felt like it before. It felt like my world was collapsing, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't do anything to save my world. It was too late. I had destroyed. It was time for me to deal with the repercussions of my own choices. I continued to observe them. There were innumerable photos like it. I had never felt so embarrassed in my life. Tears started to pour from my eyes. William did not like crying. I disliked it, but I couldn't control myself. How could he install cameras in our house? He was insane. No, I was the insane one. James explained that he had been following and investigating me since the night. We went Christmas shopping, and then William appeared. He told me that ever since William appeared, He had been spending more time outside and on my phone. But I wasn't being careless enough. He told me that all of the evidence would be used against me in court, and he would take everything from me. Oh, James also stated that he donated all of the items to charity, because he believed I deserved nothing. To be honest, I was concerned about the gifts, but the ground was vibrating beneath my feet. It felt as if an earthquake had never ended. I had no idea how I was going to survive after that. Things that made me feel degraded and useless. I was surprised when he told me that there was no need for me a Christmas gift for our family and friends, because he had already sent them the same open boxes. He paused for a bit, and then, "Oh, I have another gift for you." He handed me the divorce papers, which he had previously signed. I couldn't believe it. How could he have told this story about my family? I wanted to cut all the ties with my family and friends. I could sense fire and wrath in his eyes. How might he accomplish that? I accomplished everything by myself. Then, he began reminding me of everything he did for us. I was incredibly ungrateful and selfish. He continued to humiliate me by saying that I enjoyed having sex with William because I had damaged my own life. He continued, "I hope the sex with William was worthwhile, honey, because I am going to take everything from you and destroy you." I froze there, watching him speak and cry. I wish this was merely a nightmare, but it wasn't. It was my actual life. I asked James not to send this to anyone, but he insisted it was. To my agent extraordinaire, meticulously, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Everything was supposed to be sent the following morning. It was too late to worry about my family or friends. It lost everything. And then I recalled about my job. He found me the job, but perhaps he would not take that from me. I hoped. So, if he did that, he was going to completely destroy me in total. Everything was finished. My friends and family would find out the following day. It was my Christmas. My Christmas memories would always be about how I cheated on my marriage, and how he retaliated by destroying my life. I know him to fault, and I know I deserved all of his vengeance. But it didn't feel good. John was the person I adored. I remembered how I would run to his arms whenever I needed someone, and how he always made me feel better. And now, I had no one to turn to, because he had informed everyone about what he'd done. I literally had no one left. I didn't have any money, because he had stopped all of my credit cards. I hoped he had left anything in our shared bank account. John has begged me to move out since that day. So, on Christmas Day, I was unemployed and homeless. I couldn't stop crying and begged him to allow me to stay. Could I be more humiliated? I begged him for pardon and mercy. However, he would not forgive me. He told me to go get my things ready, because I didn't have much time left. James would never forgive me. However, what he did was extremely harsh with no mercy. While I turned my back on him, I prepared to go without knowing where I was heading. I forgot to tell you that. I sent this gift to your boss and asked him to fire you, because you could harm the company's reputation. So yeah, he did that too. He even took my job from him. He really left me with nothing. I was devastated. Who does this? I know you'd all say that he was intelligent, and I deserved what he did. I understand that what I did was extremely wrong, and I regret what I did. But now it is too late. The final stage of his vengeance. Guess what it was? You cannot find out. But he'll tell you. He created a website called Sarah's Christmas Affair, and released all of the films from the concealed camera, as well as every picture and screenshot of my interactions with William. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He mailed the website URL to everyone. We knew. He cowed and quit embarrassing me. This was the final thing, and it was the most powerful of them all. How was I going to look them in the eye? How would I go out? And how would I leave with it? As soon as I finished preparing my belongings, I left and checked into a tiny hotel outside of town with reasonable costs. The next morning, I was considering calling an old friend and staying some days. I was shed. Let me. This was the story of my Christmas affair, which shattered my life. I hope you won't pass too many judgments. My life is already a wreck. Wishing you the best. Thanks for reading my story. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Update. Hello, everyone. This is Sarah. Again, I believe you all deserve a short update and answers to your inquiries. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My parents were stunned by what I did, and they still refuse to speak to me. That has completely destroyed my heart. Every day, I attempt phoning them or going to the door, but it doesn't open. They informed me I was their daughter anymore, which devastated me the most about William. Oh, and he received a box from James too. Until that day, he did not respond to my texts or calls. Yeah. What he knew best. Disappear. I was so dumb to believe that we had always shared that connection. The spark was never gone. It felt like we had left something unfinished. But, in reality, he merely used me. He returned, devastated my life, and then left again. He appeared to be seeking vengeance on me, although he had not. It was simply how he was formed. He was a toxic individual, and he was the reason I destroyed my life. I never heard from James. Again, I tried contacting him and chatting to him, but he refused. He never forgave me, but I'm not sure if I can forgive him for what he did. Mostly for uploading my videos online in that manner. Okay, it was well to be deserved, but it completely devastated my life. I also got dismissed from my work. They used the web videos as a reason, claiming that it would ruin their reputation. So they had to fire me. As you can see, my life is a complete mess, and I have no idea how to fix it. How am I going to be the old me? Again, though fortunately, my old acquaintance opened the door for me, but I won't be able to stay here very long, and I am still seeking for a job in a tiny flat. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.